Good morning, everybody. Natalie coming to live. Or grand rising, everybody. Natalie coming to live. Spirit and coffee. Little coffee here. Oh, so yum. Oh, okay. Like my shirt, the Cosmos. I've never really looked at this shirt to see what it has: the sun, the moon, the sacred feminine. I was like, I don't even know what's on it. Okay. It was just given to me. So I get stuff and then I don't even know what's on it and I just wear it and it's all good. Okay. So esoteric, spiritual alchemy. Didn't know what I was going to talk about, and then boom, I start talking, and of course, things come to my brain. So I write a curriculum. I should like map out the week. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about that. No, I just talk, talk, talk. Okay. Um, it was crazy because I had somebody reach out to me and asking me a ton of questions, right? Especially like about relationship or if I wanted to get married and all these things. I was curious. I don't really know why the individual was asking. I think maybe they were doing their own research. Um, and there's a couple of things that I want to say about it. Number one, we cannot generalize, okay? Or you can if you want to. I shouldn't say we can't. You can generalize, but the reality is not everybody's the same and everybody has their unique perspective. So when we generalize, right, we sort of put people or a culture or a community into this sort of a box. And then really what ends up happening is that it's hard for us to see them outside the box. And if it's hard for us to see them outside the box, then it's hard for us to even understand how to open up a new dialogue with that particular group of individuals, people, whatever. So I was asked all these questions. And at the end of it, I said, you know, for me, relationship is, I don't, that's not what I focus on. I focus on my relationship with God and myself. And then the person said, oh, I didn't realize you believed in God. And I'm like, okay. So I don't know if this individual thought I was supposed to be saved by having a relationship through God, but I don't know really where that came from. And so I think what happened, and I think the reason why there was some confusion is because I talk about esoteric work, spiritual alchemy. Now, when you do this or when people talk about it, they tend to get caught up or confused because there's religion. Now, religion, as people know, religion, hey, Tony, has tied up individuals into a certain way of thinking, a box, right? Now, they will say, this is the way, this is the truth, and this is the light. This is the way it is. And if you don't believe my way, then you need to be saved. Something's wrong with you. Okay, that's religion. Now, this is not a right, wrong, good, or bad. Okay, this is just the way it's structured, right? This is not a judgment. I'm just talking factual. So if you don't do it a certain way, now there's different sectors where it's a lifestyle. Now, Buddhism has been put into a religion, but Buddhism is a way of life. It's a way of living. It's not a religion. Okay. And I think that in order for people to understand perhaps what spiritual alchemy is and perhaps what esoteric wisdom means, they perhaps have to understand that it's not religion. It is not it's a lifestyle. It's a way of living, which is different than a religion. Now, I'm not going to say that religion doesn't have that set in it, right? Religion itself has that a way of living set in it, right? But religion says my way's the right way, your way's the wrong way. Okay. So here's the deal. This is not about religion. And I think this gets people a little confused because they're like, do you believe in God? And if so, what God? Well, if we say the word God, good morning, poetic. If we say the word God, how in the hell am I supposed to know which God? It's not which God, it is just God. Okay. But I use the word God because it's an easy term to use, right? People sort of have their idea of God. You say God and they say, okay. But we as humans don't have the capacity to even understand the magnitude of that particular word. Now, there's different words to describe God, right? There's Yahweh, right? People say Yahweh, I am that I am. It's the I am. Now, here's the deal, and this is where people get stuck. The reason, okay, the reason that we don't have a name for it is because as soon as you call it that, it's not that anymore. When I say God, what does that really mean? Can we use a word to describe something that we don't even truly understand? No. Okay. So people get a little confused when so I think the individual got confused in saying, I didn't think you believed in God. And I'm going, okay. Yes, I do. I believe in God, and I say God. Okay. It could be universe, it could be whatever the word is. Now, with spiritual alchemy, okay, spiritual alchemy is a way of living. What it does, so some people are afraid of it and they say, well, it's evil. Well, tarot is a part of spiritual alchemy. And tarot has been taken away from what? It's been taken away from everybody and it's been made wrong. Okay, so I've talked about this before, but I'm going to retell it again because I want people to truly understand what is Spirit and Coffee? What are you listening to? What does it even mean? And maybe you'll understand that this is not a religion. This is not me telling you what to believe or how to believe. It's simply offering you an opportunity to explore and discover the internal relationship that you have with God. That I don't have the ability to tell you how to interact with that energy or whatever you call it, the universe or however. That is very personal for you. But some people, right? How do you engage it? And how do you start to embody yourself to be more godlike and illuminated? And I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't even say illuminated, but just closer to your authentic God self that serves humanity. I mean, it's really that simple. How do you blossom from the base of your core all the way out and let that light radiate all around and share your gifts? And it's really that simple. But of course, it's not as simple as, so here's the paradox. It's a complex thing, right? It's complex. Why? Because yes, it sounds simple, but to apply it and apply it to this three-dimensional time space we live in becomes very complex because we are experiencing what we feel is separation. And then, you go down the rabbit hole again. So let me bring it back to the spiritual alchemy and what it means and why I do this and what it is. People, right? We as people cannot say that we know exactly how God, right? We know God internally when we're connected to God. But I can't tell you that my way of my relationship and my engagement with God is better than yours or right or wrong, or it's not. That wouldn't be true. I don't know because I don't live in you. I live in me. Okay, so the spiritual alchemy part of it, if we went to the tarot, and so looking at tarot, most people, and I'm going to say that you individuals on here know, but I'm going to say it again, that most people don't realize that the 52 card deck is based off tarot. And tarot itself has two major things connected to it, the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana is really a depiction of, and what we can call maybe archetypal figures that show up in the macrocosm. The macrocosm being the greater, you can call it the collective consciousness if you want. I mean, different people have different names for these things. So I'm reading Carl Jung stuff. To me, what he's calling the collective conscious could be the major arcana, right? Where we have these archetypal figures that sort of radiate throughout everybody, and certain people take on certain energies that way. Then we have the minor arcana, which is how we engage the world. This is the more day-to-day activities that happen in the microcosm. So macrocosm being the big grand scheme of things and the patterns that are set in this big macro world, to the microcosm of how we embody those things and move through the world. That's it. It's not fortune telling. Now, some people will utilize it that way, but the reality is we can see patterns. And that's really what the cards do, is give us an opportunity to kind of look at what the patterns are, suggest and give ideas to the individual about how they might maneuver through those patterns. And that's it. There's no people can take it to the dark arts, and that's true, but that's not what it was intended for. Okay. In the tarot, there is the idea of natural law. Natural law is God's law, okay, or the universal law. It is the law that governs all of the things that we have no control over. And here's the deal. And this is what really is happening. And this is how people can have discernment, right? And recognize when there's manipulation happening. If individuals are trying to manipulate the natural law, which is the law of nature, and manipulate it for their own benefit, then we call that shadow dark arts. Those are the dark arts. Those are the arts where people are engaging in manipulation. And then we have a ton of words attached to that, like evil, devil, whatever it's called. They're wicked, they're this, they're that. Okay, those are the dark arts. Really what they're doing is trying to manipulate what is the natural law to their own personal benefit. Okay? Their own personal gain. Good morning, Tina. So natural law is something that exists. It exists without us doing anything. We don't need to do anything. If we cease to exist as a human, the law of nature would continue. Okay, it's the circle of life, right? Simba, the circle of life, right? Where you have migration, right? You have these animals, antelope, and all these big major, whatever it is, cattle, bison, whatever you want to call, they migrate, right? And as they migrate, there's different things that happen. You have lions and all this who eat from them, but they don't overeat because there's a natural cycle to life. There's a natural law. Things grow, the sun hits, and photosynthesis happens on the plants, and the plants grow, and water condensation happens, and that's natural law. And then water comes and sprinkles these beautiful plants so that they can drink of the water, and it springs forth life, right? So that's natural law. That it's not something that we are doing. It's just naturally happening, unfolding, right? And when we start to look at like other cultures and how they believe their religion or how they talk about life, they talk about life sort of unfolding like a flower rather than being created, that it was all here just unfolding like this and blossoming. That is natural law. Good morning, Suzanne. Good morning, Roberto. Good morning, all those on Podbean. If I didn't say Emmanuel, MPG, Word, I don't know if you guys are still on here, but good morning. So spiritual alchemy is the acceptance of natural law and recognizing that we have these laws that have already been here before we were here. Now, man, okay. Oh, Quad D, what's up? I didn't even see you. I don't know if you're still on here. So we have sort of tried to manipulate, right? Human has tried to manipulate natural law on a grand scale. This is where your eyes can start to open up and you start to look around. And all you needn't look too far to recognize what is going on. Good morning, Sunny. You start to look around and you start to see the world and engage it. And as you start to look at the world and engage it, you can start to see that the things are the places where manipulation is happening. Okay. Now in spiritual alchemy, We don't make anything right, wrong, good, or bad. We use everything. And this is the hard part for most people. That doesn't mean you go engage in the dark arts. You can if you choose to, but there are consequences. A spiritual alchemist understands that every move, every word, everything they do in their life has a consequence. Everything that I do, everything that I say, I know it has a consequence. I know that there's going to be some ripple effect to the things that I do. It's recognizing and understanding that. So there are people who know this work, and there are people who actually manipulate for their own benefit purposefully and misuse. Okay, I call it misuse of the great practice and the great work. Now, spiritual alchemy is called the great work. The great work. Why? Because it is a great big mass of work. Good morning, Don. It's not easy work, and it never ends. But someone who is committed to the great work can manifest great things. Now, again, you can manifest great things using manipulation that in turn you will pay the price eventually. There's always a price to pay for the choices we make. It's life. You guys know that. It's simple, right? You guys have experienced it. We all have. And that's how we learn, right? As kids, we start to learn. Like so I'll tell you, when I was young, I got caught shoplifting. Yes, I was a rebel. And I got caught shoplifting, and there was a consequence to it, right? And I either learned or didn't learn. Okay. And in my mind, I thought, oh, it's justifiable. Why is it justifiable? I was a kid. I thought it was justifiable because it came from a big store. I'm like, I don't steal from individual people. I would never do that. But it's okay to go steal from a store. No, stealing is stealing, and there's a consequence for it, right? And that's a lot of the reason why when my car was getting stolen all these times that I wasn't so upset, because I was like, yeah, that's probably what happened, because it's a lesson that I had to learn. Even if I did it just once, it could come back tenfold. But then we sometimes don't recognize or have discernment about it, right? It's the most time-consuming, unpaid, rewarding work that can be done. Amen. Sometimes no consequence. Yeah, and I think people get caught up with the word consequence. I know one of my friends was like, I don't like the word consequence. It sounds negative. So I say consequence, but it doesn't matter what we do. I mean, there's always an affect, right? There's always something that happens after we choose to do something, good or bad, however we experience it, right? So there's always something. And why? Because life is in motion. If life wasn't in motion, there would be nothing. Then there would be no ripple effect, right? We would just disappear, I guess. I don't know. I'd imagine that's what would happen, but that's not the case. So there's always motion happening. So whether it be really good consequences or really not so good consequences. And maybe it's effects, cause and effects. Maybe it's the effects of the things that we do. Maybe that's a better word to use than consequence. Okay. Because I know that it might have negative connotations for some people when you say consequence. But we do, everything we do has a reaction, right? There's an action and reaction. And then we go into understanding spiritual alchemy. So check out how cool this is and why I love it. When we start to talk spiritual alchemy, guess what we start to talk? The language of the world. You know why? Because if we think of cause and effect, what do we start looking at? Physics. Physics derived from spiritual alchemy. Chemistry derived from spiritual alchemy. Casinos derived from spiritual alchemy. They bastardize it. That's the shadow side. And people will say, well, what's the connection? How does this make sense, right? So this would be like spiritual alchemy 101. They took the tarot. This is, and hopefully this shocks you for those of you casino loving people, right? Or maybe it won't. Maybe you already know it. They took so go online, do your own research, right? Don't ever just listen to what I say. Go do your own research and find out where the 52 card deck came from. It came from the tarot. What they did is they took out the major arcana, which is the most important part of the tarot. Then they fed us playing cards of the 52 deck, which is the minor arcana, which keeps us stuck in the three-dimensional time space. You can say that the major arcana is our spiritual enlightenment, or our spiritual way to engage the world. So they took it out, okay? And then what happened? Poker happened. Card games happened. They started making it a game. And we started to do solitaire, and then we started to do poker. And out of poker, we started to gamble. And we were gambling with what? Probably our own souls. People would gamble off their entire estate. Okay? Meaning they sold their soul to gamble for what? For materialism, right? Because if I gamble, I'm gambling for material gain. That's what I'm doing. Okay? And it's an easy way, right? It's like, oh, if I go put $10 in this machine and get 20, that's easy. Okay. So they started to gamble. Then they got wise and they started to see that they can make money, right? Through manipulation. Understanding the algorithms, okay? Because all slot machines are based on an algorithm. Algorithms that say you put your money in and we're gonna make it seem like you win, but really you're gonna put more in because it's addicting. You're addicted to it now. And if you go to the casinos, you'll see that it's based on the 52 card deck. Aces, jacks, kings, and queens. That is your tarot deck. You have kings, you have queens, you have jacks, which are pages in the major arcana. And then you have all the numbers that go with it. All the suits are based on the 4 elements: earth, water, air, fire. Go to the casinos. Good morning, bestie. Hi. It's good to see you this weekend. Very, very fun. So you go to the casinos, you'll see that it's all based on that. Now, we look at Percy Jackson, and I like to talk about Percy Jackson because this is like the best depiction of how they have kept people trapped in a circle and how they've blinded us, right? In Percy Jackson, he goes in, he's supposed to be fighting all of these sort of demons or energies so that he can reclaim his, restore balance or whatever, okay? So on his journey, he goes to the casino. And they go inside and they're supposed to, I believe he's supposed to slay or kill one of these individuals or get something from him. I can't 100% remember. But he goes into the casino and they go inside and they start to eat the food. And they tell him, don't eat the food because you're going to get trapped. But they can't help themselves. So they take the Kool-Aid, they drink the Kool-Aid, and they eat the food. And then time seems to not exist. So notice when you're in the casino, you can go from 8 o'clock in the morning and before you know it, it's 8 in the morning. And you're like, what the hell happened? Where did all the time go? And where's all my money now? Right? Okay. So they get out of the casino after eating all of this stuff. And they're like, we need to leave. We're stuck. We're trapped. They're literally have showed you that they have created manipulation through spiritual alchemy to keep you trapped by taking out the major arcana from the deck. Think about it this way. Spiritual alchemy, and if we looked at the tarot, we could teach our children natural law through the tarot, which is nature's law. They just put it into pictorial form. The story is there. The story of natural law is there. And it plays out over and over and over and over and over again. You could pick a card and I can tell you And then people say, yeah, I could relate to that. Why? Because they've experienced it. Why? Because patterns repeat themselves. So people don't understand this because they took these rituals away from individuals. They called those people witches, and they took it away, and then they inserted what they was their own programming, and they took out these hidden teachings from people. Now people are afraid to go back and think that they were wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. People don't have to, they can do their own research even. And in fact, I love when people do research. And if I'm wrong, come show me. Come tell me. But here's how I know. I know because you can see it in the trees. You can see it in the plants. You can see it in the behavior of individuals. If you applied the card deck to what's going on in our society, you would see clearly what's happening. You yourself would be called a prophet. It's not prophecy. It's patterncy. I just made that word up. I'm going to coin that word, patterncy. It's not prophecy. It's patterncy. We can see the patterns. It's simple, but not so simple. But it is simple. And when you start to make that discernment and recognize the patterns, now you can decide what patterns you want in your life and what patterns you don't. What patterns are helping you get closer to your authentic divine self and which ones are not. And then you can start to separate and say, okay, look, I'm going to separate this. Now, I'm not saying that we're separate, but I'm going to separate this so that I can reflect upon it. Not separation as I'm better, judgment, but separation as let me observe it. Let me look at it. Let me understand it so that I know how to engage it when I come back. Just like family members. Sometimes we have to separate so that we can observe it and then we can engage it the way that we choose to. And that helps us protect ourselves. It's for protection, not because we think this person's right, wrong, good, or bad, but because we need to protect our own self. If we don't know what we're dealing with, if we don't know who we're dealing with, you can get hurt, right? That's what happens. So engaging with people and asking them, who are you? Now, the ones who just don't know who they are, that's the worst, right? Because then they're being taken over by their own patterns they don't even know. So it's almost unpredictable in some ways, but it's not. If you watch behavior, you'll see it, but their words won't match their actions. Is there something wrong with them? No. They have to accept who they are inside truly. Because we speak about ourselves as, look, we want to be the best version of ourselves. Everybody does, right? You guys want to be the best versions of yourself. Of course you do. You don't think you want to be bad people. But sometimes the way that we speak about ourselves doesn't match the actions that we're actually doing. And then we start to lose integrity. And when we start to lose integrity, we start to lose trust from people. And people are like, yeah, that person says they're this, but they're totally not. Or the big one, that person's a flake. That's an easy one, right? They constantly say they're going to show up and then they don't. Every single time. I mean, I've had people in my life every single time. And eventually you just say, you know what, forget it. I'm just not going to do it because they're not ever showing up and you just don't trust them. But then you have the ones that show up every time, right? And you're like, okay, I can trust that they're going to show up because they always show up. And that's building trust. So when our words match our actions, that's when we start to get closer to our authentic self. And then we can start to take ownership of our own life without having to put any filters on. If someone calls me out and I know that it's true, I'm not going to deny it. If it's true for me. right? If someone said, well, you said this and you did this, and I'm like, you're right. It's true. Thank you for letting me know, bringing that to my attention. And then being honest with yourself about who you are. But being honest with yourself takes courage. Stop pretending or don't. It's up to you. Again, there are results, consequences. And the consequences or the effects that happen, we don't really know what they are. Like, I can sort of see what's going to happen to individuals who do certain things. I can sit back and watch and I could be like, ugh, they're kind of going down that road. I can see where that's headed. You can just see it. I just know. Do I know exactly how it's going to play out? Not necessarily. I have an idea, but not 100%. Okay. But I can see it and I'm going, and it's not up to me to intervene unless it's my niece or my nephew, unless they're like the little ones that are connected to us. But beyond that, it's not, people will come to me and you can ask me, well, I'm headed down this direction. What are you thinking? And then I'll work with you, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to have you figure it out. Why? Because you get it. You guys are smart. You're intelligent human beings. You get it. You know, you know what type of person you are. And there's some people who are like doormat people, right? Where they're just like, don't say no to anything. And internally, they probably feel like they're being run all over. But reality is they're not saying no. They're just afraid to say no. Well, just say no. Just no, I don't want to. And then once you practice it, because you're going to feel like a jackass or you're going to feel like you're rude or whatever it is, once you practice it, your no's become easy. Your no's become, you know what, I would love to, but I can't. I have plans. I have other things that I'm doing that day. For me, it's, look, if you want to schedule something, you have to get on the calendar. That's just the way I operate. I'm sorry. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But I work on a calendar. I have to understand what I'm doing during my day because I have other things that I'm up to that I put in my calendar that I want to do. And if I'm going to compromise one of the things that I truly want to do, right, then I need to know. So you can see how spiritual alchemy is this vast thing, but once you understand it, once you start to know it, you can talk about any subject because it's all encompassing and how it's all interwoven and interconnected. Well, how did we get from here to here? Because it's all interconnected and it goes all the way back to the beginning, which is what? God. And then natural law. And then out of natural law, all these things start to happen and develop. Go look at the tarot and go look at what it means, right? Because we talked about the casinos, we talked about how they've taken out the major arcana, how that has left us in this place of not really understanding how to manifest, to truly be a manifester. Because I know there's so many people, abundance, manifest. I mean, they've made tons of money trying to teach people how to manifest. And then it's like vision boards and this and that. I'll be honest with you. Learn spiritual alchemy. Learn it. It's not easy though. That's the thing. There's no easy way to abundance. And yet it's not hard. Makes sense? No, because it sounds like what a paradox, but that's what we end up with, paradoxes. Why? Because we live in a world that looks like a duality, which it's not, it's whole. So there's no easy way to abundance, yet there is. And the reason why is because abundance starts with you. You believing you're worth it, you believing you're enough, you believing in yourself. That's not an easy journey. It's understanding that you're already abundant, that you don't need materialism to be abundant. But that's not an easy journey, but it is. But it's not. And there's your paradox for the day. Abundance isn't easy, but it is. When you realize that you're worthy and you're enough and that you have everything you need inside of you, that you yourself are part of this spiritual alchemy, whether you like it or not, that you are a divine law, that the divine law exists within you, that you are unfolding in God's divine glory and right. When you start to really understand that and really tap into that, you will understand that you are the abundance. It's not no money, place, or thing, right? That's what the abundance book says. No money, place, or thing is my abundance. You are. So it's easy, but it's not easy. Okay. So we went all the way from spiritual alchemy all the way to abundance. It's the same thing, too, because when we talk about the magnitude of what God gives, God is abundant. It's everywhere. Abundance is everywhere. We have abundance of oxygen. If we didn't have an abundance of oxygen, we'd all be dead. So right there, you're abundant. You're able to breathe in air. I don't believe in isms. I just believe in me. Oh, that's from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah. And there you go. Believe in you. Absolutely. I agree with that, Quadji. Just believe in you. And as you believe in you and as you tap into your own personal understanding of yourself, you will be called to spiritual alchemy naturally because it's natural law. We didn't make it. I didn't create it. I just understand that it exists. That's it. And then I look at it and I play with it. And sometimes it slaps me in the face. And somebody said, "Oh, so you're a spiritual alchemist. You just put a bunch of stuff and see what happens." And I'm like, yeah, no, and yes. Sometimes we make a brew in our life that don't work at all. And it's bitter and it's sour. And we've got to let it go. And sometimes we brew up like the best tasting coffee or the best tasting tea, right? And we're like, yes, that's so and it's like the perfect thing. But then all of a sudden we're over it because it becomes boring and we need something different. And so we try to brew up a whole new thing. And that's our life. We're brewing up different stuff all the time, different people, different experiences. Okay. So here's the big question today. What are you going to brew for yourself on this magical, marvelous, magnificent Monday? Go brew something that's yummy, maybe like chocolatey or if you don't like chocolate, maybe savory, I don't know, with chili or something. Okay. All right. So there you go. So I love you guys. Have the most magical, magnificent, and I like this magical eagles came on, as I said, mystical. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know how I read magical. I think I was just too happy with the word magical. Mystical Monday ever. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.